So another defeat for Burnley, a 3-0 loss to Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park on Saturday. That's the third defeat in a row for a team that is now without a win in 2 months. 13 points from 26 games. 3 wins, 4 draws and 19 defeats this season. The goal difference speaks for itself. 58 goals conceded and just 25 scored. The Clarets are now 8 points from safety, and in reality it just feels a matter of time before relegation to the Championship is confirmed. This was another woeful performance, hardly helped by Josh Brownhill's first half red card after an inexplicable hospital pass from goalkeeper James Trafford. All 3 goals came in an 11-minute second-half spell, and then we were treated to a bizarre triple substitution in the 91st minute, which at least gave the crowd a chance for a slightly sarcastic rendition of the Manuel Benson song from last season. Vincent Kompany decided to walk over to the away end at the final whistle, and by all accounts received a mixed reception from fans who had sung his name with such pride and passion last season. Have the fans now turned against the manager? Is it time for Chairman Alan Pace to answer some questions? We'll discuss all that and more on this episode of From the Be-All End.
Jimmy McElroy to Watson. Go!
Welcome to From the Be-All Then. I'm Simon Evans. With me is Andrew Greaves, Paul Woodhouse, Justin Connolly and Chris Bowden, the full pod squad here to discuss another miserable Saturday for Burnley. Oh, who wants the pleasure of starting us off with this one? Greavesy, fire away.
I knew you'd throw to me, you bugger. Yeah, it's where do we start? I mean, I think your intro absolutely summed it up perfectly. The kind of feeling. I mean, you started off with a rather downcast, another defeat for Burnley. I mean, I know we've tried to be positive, but it's very difficult to try and get any cheering. And I think that's worse than Arsenal. I genuinely think, you kind of went, we want a response. And the response was that we'd got worse. Now, I don't know what the issue is because it goes past just the tactics and the team selection now, doesn't it? I think, I described the performance as non-existent, I think, in that first half. And then you put out on our Twitter feed quite literally non-existent, 0 for every single category when it came to shots and touches in the opposition box and things like that. The Ghost, of course, had exited stage left by that point, just half an hour in after my second favourite player, James Trafford, had managed to play him not so much a hospital pass, but a full A&E department surgical removal type pass. And to paraphrase Roy Keane when he was talking about De Gea a couple of years ago, I am sick of this goalkeeper because it's got to the point now where you can't even, he's a good shot stopper. Everyone says to me, he's a good shot stopper. He's a good shot stopper, but he's conceded
good shot stoppers.
You know what I mean? Tell me a goalkeeper who's not a good shot stopper. By their very nature,
that's what they do.
Don't they? I'm a good shot stopper on Sunday. I play for the minimum amount of time as I can at 6-a-side. Now, at the other end, we've got Phil Bird, who is a good shot stopper, but a little bit James Trafford-esque with his distribution, I have to say. And I'm sure Birdie will be listening and knows exactly what I'm talking about. But that just set, the tone was set in the first minute when James Trafford had to attempt a flying diving header to try and intercept a Charlie Taylor back pass. And I'm sat there thinking, it's going to be one of them.
We should have he completely missed the diving header.
Of course he did. Merritt should have got it. Merritt should have got it, though. I've got more to say, but I will give the floor to somebody else because you've got to laugh. If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Woody, were you laughing or crying at that?
Probably both. It was. I wouldn't even call it a performance, and I think we're now into that realm of like serious confidence issues, aren't we? Because like we're saying, it can't just be down to tactics, players, inability, whatever. You could tell with the thing that really stuck out to me with regards to that kind of back pass missed header business was bad decision and low confidence. And similarly, with regards to that hospital pass, yeah, forget about Muric or whatever. Muric would play that pass as well, but he wouldn't have topped it. You know what I mean? He'd at least played it to feet. And I think this is one of the reasons that we're starting to see this throughout the side. We can see it on the faces of like Amdouni. We go one goal down, shoulders are starting to drop, and you can see that there's absolutely nobody within that side who either believes what it is that they should be doing, what they're doing, and it just seems to be a huge confidence gap throughout the entire side, and I think that's slightly worrying.
It is. I mean, is it inevitable, Justin? I mean, I listed the stats, the raw stats there. I mean, when you've had 19 defeats and 3 wins in a season, your confidence is bound to be low, isn't it? But I mean, something should be done about that, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to put your finger on how you dig yourself out of that hole, isn't it? I think company went on and on this week, didn't he, about going back to getting the basics right. And I suppose that's one way to get your foot back on the ladder, isn't it? But they didn't. They showed absolutely no signs of doing that whatsoever. Stray passes, they gave the ball away so many times. Absolutely no threat whatsoever up front. And when you watch them play, it's really difficult to discern any kind of plan, isn't it? You don't know what they're actually trying to do. We said this before, but it's such a strange predicament that they find themselves in now. From the highs of last season to where we are now, I don't think any of us, I mean, I think we all predicted a tough season, but to get to where we are now, I mean, last week, I described the performance as if they were playing like they were elderly sheep. I don't know if you remember that, but
funnily enough,
it seems like the sheep have actually expired this week. We are playing a team of dead sheep. It was so easy for a very, very poor Crystal Palace side to get through us. It's unbelievable. There was a line in Jonathan Wilson's Guardian match report that I thought summed it up perfectly. All you have to do against Burnley this season is wait. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. They didn't play particularly well, Palace. All they had to do is wait for the chance. And it always comes. And then when they get one, they get another. And then they get another. I mean, 3-0 against that side. What else can you say?
No, there's not a lot you can say about it, really. I mean, a totally demoralised-looking team putting in a totally miserable performance. Chris, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, there's ways of losing, isn't there? And week on week now, we're just going down with a whimper. It's just weak. It's it's ineptitude. It's just we'll never know. I mean, like sort of Vincent talking in the week about it sort of didn't feel necessarily that a side that romps the Championship with 101 points and only loses 3 games all season wasn't good enough for the Premier League. We'll never know if they were good enough. But this lot are nowhere near, and they're a worse side. There's, I think was it John Robertson on Twitter, Burnley fan earlier today, sort of doing the maths, and in terms of a drop off, I mean, Burnley have got 13 points, and it's March next week. And there's never been a drop-off. From 101 points to what Burnley are on now, I think they've got to attain 10 points in the last 12 games to avoid another record. And it's not going to happen. They're not going to get to 20 points. They're going to go down as one of the worst sides in Premier League history, with one of the worst home records in Premier League history. And I'm just thoroughly embarrassed, and I'm quite ambivalent now whether company stays or goes. To be honest, it's I don't see things getting any better. And you look at, I mean, he's linked with the Belgium job, linked with the Chelsea job, linked with the Spurs job, and they must all be thinking, oof, what might have been there. You're coming off watching Chelsea, who have spent an awful lot of money and just showing very little signs of gelling, and obviously not spent anywhere near as much money in comparison. But in Burnley world, they have, and it's just there's no cohesion. There's no, the game plan last season. I say we weren't going to football teams to death in the Premier League necessarily, but it would have been prudent, I think, to sort of try and stick to that, that way of playing, and just try and supplement it over the summer. And if they go down, fine, we build again. But you're going to have to rebuild again this summer, and there's no guarantee. It's going to be an awfully strong championship next season. No guarantee of success.
No, I mean, it's funny, like that. The commentator on the World feed, we had a return of the Vincent Kompany has stuck to his principles line, which I hadn't heard for a while. And this idea from people who don't watch Burnley very much, that the reason why the team has struggled is because they won the championship playing this brilliant passing football, and they've tried to do that in the Premier League, and it's just not worked. And the evidence apparently would be James Trafford playing a short pass to Josh Brownhill that led to a red card and cost the team heavily. It's just nonsense, isn't it? Because they're not playing anything like that. I mean, the idea that they're playing some version of the football that was played last season, that's gone out of the window ages ago. It's just, I don't know. Like Greavesy said, I don't know what the plan was, what the team is. It seems to me, and I think this is like a thing that needs addressing. It seems to me that it's more than just confidence. They don't look utterly demoralised, but to me, so does Kompany. And you can get into amateur psychology looking at his body language and all that kind of stuff, but the amount of photos with him with his head in his hands, just his demeanour during the interviews now, where I do feel a bit sorry for him in a way. I mean, what can he say? Like, when it's not really fair to sort of pick apart and wait. Oh, he said that we fought all game and we didn't fight all game. I mean, he's got to say something. What can you say about that? But it looks to me, for the first time, I'm starting to think he might not be Burnley manager next season. Not because Pace sacks him, but I don't know. Is he out of the question, Greavesy, that Vincent Kompany looks at this and says, this isn't doing me any good?
I don't know, because I think there is I think with him there is an utter belief that he will get this right. I genuinely think that, and I think that's fed into the reason why he stubbornly persevered with the various experiments. I mean, Amdouni yesterday, before he was hooked to bring Cullen on, I'd forgot he was playing anonymous. Audebert for a large part anonymous. Berger, worst game in a Burnley shirt. Brownhill until that point anonymous. And I actually thought we looked a more coherent side in injury time when we'd made that weird triple substitution that almost felt slightly insulting. And a lot of people have said when we kind of put that out on our Twitter feeds, it felt a bit childish, it felt petulant, it felt, a little bit snide.
That's bringing on Jack Cork, Manuel Benson and Jay Rodriguez.
Yeah. Because I actually thought Cullen offered more in the centre of the park than we've seen from other midfielders.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's looking for the ball. What you want in a situation like this, and like you say, you go into kind of COD psychology and amateur psychology, what you want is somebody looking for the ball. And yesterday we had people actively not looking for the ball. There were times when the turnover of possession was just horrendous. From both sides, I should say. I mean, they weren't much better. But when Cullen came on, he was looking for the ball. And that's what you want. And I said earlier to someone, what we're missing is somebody to, grab hold of the situation by the scruff of the neck and say, this is not good enough. You saw Esteve doing the chin up. We're too soft. We're too passive. We're too meek and mild. We let teams steamroller us. And, as Justin quoted from the Guardian match report, Palace did it at Turf Moor. They waited, got the chance. West Ham did it at Turf Moor. Waited. Kompany made a couple of substitutions that handed the game to West Ham, at Burnley being 1-0 up. And it's just, I can imagine the dressing room is meek and mild because we've got no mental strength. We've got physical strength that's lacking for this league. And actually, there was a time when it was just after Vitinho had given the penalty when it went to the bench, and Charlie Taylor and Jay Rodriguez were sat there, and they both had that could have seen that coming kind of look on their face, But at 2-0 down again, we've chosen to take off a left back and put on another left back. Yeah, you know what I mean? Everything about it just feels like, I don't know. It is weird how he's gone from being this tactical genius last year to dismantling the team, as we've said several times, and then coming up with a style of play that has no noticeable, no identifiable identity. There is no... Last year, there was an identity to that team. This year, I don't know what we're meant to be doing. I don't know what... Like, how Amdouni keeps getting games. How Trafford keeps getting games. How Audibert keeps getting games for me. And I know there's a different opinion on Wilson and things like that. And I'm not saying he won't be a good player, but in the system we're playing, we need... you almost need a Goodmanson and a Brun Larson, more of a workhorse set of wingers. I thought even Benson showed a lot more composure, a lot more wing nous, shall we say, in his very, very brief, 10, 11 minute cameo. And again, that might be me with Clarets into spectacles looking at...
No, but I mean, he got the ball at his... He got the ball at his feet, and defenders started backing off, and he looked in control of the ball and the situation for about 5 seconds, which in that Burnley team, compared to everybody else who gives it away almost instantly, is... I mean, Justin, one of the reasons why I'm reluctant to go down the path of analysing what company says again is it almost feels like a pointless exercise, in the sense that he can't possibly be believing what he says about the team's got fight. We're just getting done in little incidents and little mistakes. I mean, he's not daft. He must be looking at that team and reaching the same conclusions as everybody else, shouldn't he?
Well, you've got to imagine so. I mean, they have access to all the stats and everything. That'll tell them how many times we gave the ball away. Surely,
yeah.
It's not just us watching the game and having a downer on it. It is actually bad. So I don't know. I think it's strange, isn't it, that he's still 10 months after the end of last season, he's still having to defend the decisions that he took at that point, isn't he? He's still being asked about why Benson's not getting a game and why Zaroury's gone and why is all this sort of stuff still happening. But I don't know. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would give up on something like this. Clearly, he's aiming for a long and successful managerial career. Otherwise, why start it? And this would be a massive reputational hit if he just quits and walks out on the club, having done what he's done. I think he still has some credit in the bank with the fans, I think. And I think that's part of the reason for the apathy. I think, they're burning through that credit really, really quickly. And the apathy is, I think, looking at what people are saying online, is turning into anger. But I think when he walked over to the crowd at the end of the game, he looked to me like he was doing one of those one last look at the fans before I get the bullet in the morning or something like that. But he said after the game, didn't he, that he just wants to face up to the fact that we aren't good enough, and I can't go and stand in front of the fans applauding when we win and then not go and face them when things are going badly. I think that's right.
Yeah, that's fair enough, isn't it? Yeah, he did the old hands up sort of thing hands that up. I remember Solskjaer doing just before he got potted at Man United. But it did have that kind of feel to it, didn't it? But I'd be really surprised if the club took the decision to get rid of him. It's pretty tied on obvious now that we're not getting out of this hole, and we need to start thinking about next season. But he's not. I don't think he's the kind of guy to walk away. And I think if he did, it would be potentially a fatal blow to his career as a manager. Because if you've taken a club from where we were at the end of that last season to where we are now and where we're going to finish at the end of this season, there's not many
of the required stature going to take a gamble on him again, are they?
No, I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, would if we think back to like the last really poor relegation we had, because the ones with Dyche were all, battling to the end sort of things, weren't they, really? If you think about the Lords one, there was no hesitation amongst the fans from getting stuck into Brian Lords. I mean, I remember feeling very sorry for Brian Lords as a player I'd liked, getting all that abuse, having taken on the job. Michael Duff spoke on our podcast, didn't he, about how it was something of a poison chalice that he took on after Coyle. But the fans didn't want him there, so they had no hesitation in getting stuck into him. There is a hesitation with Company, isn't there? I think, maybe it's his reputation, but also what he did last season for us. There is hesitation there, but it seems to be turning. I mean, I asked somebody who was in the away end what kind of mixed reception Company got when he went over, and he said, there were some people clapping him, but there were also some people whose disappointment was turning to anger. When you look online, when you talk to people, are you picking up that the honeymoon is well and truly over with Vincent Kompany, and it's actually turning into something negative for him with the fans?
I think you're right in terms of the animosity. It's not quite at Law's level, because that was obviously slightly different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In that they obviously hated Coyle going and just took it out on Brian Laws instead, and so that was drastically unfair. This is now his project. He's been saying it's been his project for quite some time, and to go from what we've had to this is still quite staggering for a lot of people. And I think that realization, because we all know it's a results business, and the results aren't there, the performances aren't there. Even the transparency isn't there. We don't know what we're buying into. We don't know what we should be seeing, but we know we're not seeing anything that screams this is what it's like to be a Burnley fan, and we're just going to go down with a whimper. And that's simply just not good enough. But what is the alternative option? We don't know what that looks like either. Is it better the devil for a while and see how that transpires for a few games next year? We just haven't a clue, and I don't know. Nobody does. And I think this has been one of the problems with, this ALK takeover and the Company era so far, that there's been huge gaps in terms of what it is that we're supposed to be doing and what it is we're supposed to be understanding. And it's a rather sad state of affairs, all told.
Yeah, let's get into that, actually, because that's a really good point. I think Woody's hit a nail on the head there. There's an awful lot of things we don't understand fully because we're not told about. The whole finances of the club is a separate series of episodes, isn't it, to get to the bottom of that. But just generally, I mean, these things haven't been explained. I mean, Chris, when you look at the transfer business, but everything around the club, it seems like we're left to, we don't know. Mike Trezor, for example, he's been out of the team for the last 5 games, I think. When somebody said he triggered the appearances for a full transfer. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if anyone does, but he hasn't appeared since. So maybe it looks like, to me, like he was one short of that appearance thing, because we haven't seen him since. And then when Company gets asked by a journalist about Mac Trezor, he said, "Oh, there's a few things happened with him. He's been ill a bit," and it's just a lot of weird sort of vagueness about so much at the club, isn't there? I mean, part of that has to fall on the communication and the media side of it, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, it's I've not set foot, obviously, in Gawthorpe since probably like late August, early September 2022. So I don't, there's things have changed there. There's obviously long-standing media officer, media team, but there's been changes, since I left as well. But they brought in an experienced operator within the Premier League to sort of overlook things with young Ellis, who'd done a good job, learning under Darren and Pete, etc. But in terms of how much influence they have on the chairman and on the message from Vincent, etc., I don't know. But it is, we'd say we're left a bit sort of in the air about what is the project, in terms of the finances, what the outlay, what have we committed to over how many years, etc. With some of these young players, will that outlay last summer and in January affect this summer's outlay? It may well be a case of having to sell, and we've held the debate till we're blue in the face about who we might make money on, etc.
But that's kind of the point, isn't it? If Pace turned around and said at the end of this season, not now, he doesn't need to do it now, but if he turned around and said at the end of the season, we have to cut our cloth for the Championship, we're going to have to sell 4 or 5 players in order to balance the books a little bit. Not that that's a concept that really works with Burnley, but in order to, get our finances in line, we need to sell 4 or 5 players, and then we'll be able to bring in 2 or 3 cheaper ones to top up the squad. If he came out and said that, then the whole summer would be seen through that framework, wouldn't it? Whereas they probably won't say anything, and then the deals will happen and people start reading things into them. I mean, Greavesy, is this time that Pace should be coming out and saying, look, this is what's going on with the club? Should he? I mean, a lot of fans are saying that. We're not hearing anything from Pace. He's hiding. Some people are saying, what do you think about that? Is it time?
It is a weird... I always think we should hear more from chairman, because I think, some clubs, chairman, you don't hear much from, and that's great when things are going well. And, there is a tendency for club chairman to be there in the spotlight when things are going well and not to be there when things are going badly. So I think it is a difficult one, because I think it's a very unusual... ALK coming in was very unusual in the way they did it. And we had that absolute, nonsense about, we can't really say anything, but I can say that Burnley fans, if they knew, would be really proud about how we've financed the club and things like that. So you're kind of setting yourself up a little bit there.
That was weird, wasn't it? That was a weird way of presenting it.
I can't say anything, but and we've speculated, I think I've speculated that I do think ALK is almost like a horse racing syndicate where everybody buys into ALK, and ALK own the football club, a bit like you would do with a horse racing syndicate. And, that's how JJ Watt and the other fella who turned up the other week and has not been since before that.
Malcolm Jenkins.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Doing him a little bit of a disservice, being such a big kind of, him being a big NFL star and me knowing bugger all about NFL. But so I think that is the model. But if somebody came out and said, look, this is the model, what it allows us to do is it allows us to bring in expertise and investment from a wide range of people. And actually, that means that everybody feeds into the process. And actually, Burnley fans, rather than just having the 5 of us who are ALK, or 4 of us, 3 of us, whatever it is, Hunt and Pace and Dave Checketts and things like that, if it's such an innovative way of doing things and it's such a positive, and we're going to be so proud that we've done it this way, just tell us about it. Because actually then it stops idiots like us keep going, Pace, ALK, JJ Watt, and all this nonsense. Because it's the shrouded in mystery bit that I really don't understand. I don't understand why we have to be secretive. In terms of him coming out and saying more, somebody did point out on Up the Clarets that, he writes programme notes every week or every game. And my view on that is, it's welcoming the opposition team. It's, we were disappointed to come away from Anfield with nothing despite a good performance. We back wins. It's the same every week. It's rinse and repeat, isn't it? So I think there should be, and I don't know if it's in the government's charter for kind of, ownership. I think there should be almost a kind of twice a season opportunity where chairman of a football club have to hold maybe a ticketed event with supporters where there is full disclosure, maybe even live streamed. But I think all chairmen, not just Alan Pace, and again, it's not a cheap shot at Alan Pace, before anybody jumps on about we're part of the bloody Illuminati that's run this club since the 1970s and all that shite. It is what I think is needed across the whole of football is accountability for those who make decisions. You think about how German fans get all let up because Bundesliga's on about selling rights and things like that. German fans would not put up with this nonsense. They genuinely wouldn't, because they've got that culture of being fan owned, and I know we've gone beyond the kind of line for that. But what's to stop chairman being forced to be accountable to their fans? And if you think about some of the absolute disasters at the minute, Rochdale seemingly not far from liquidation, Torquay the same, Reading with their chairman, Sheffield Wednesday with their ownership, get them in front of the fans. Have it as an open forum run by the local radio station, if you will. Let's give it to the BBC. Let's give it to commercial radio. Let's give it to a rights holder. But it should be twice a season, you know, or maybe start the season, mid-season, end of the season. They should be accountable. And people can whinge on forums that I'm expecting too much and all that. And I don't care, because I think there needs to be accountability for fans who pay their hard-earned money every single week. Them poor bastards who went to Selhurst Park should have been refunded out the pocket of those players for making that trip on Saturday. And I think, again, you know, there's a lot of nonsense. It's all for show when you say stuff like that. Genuinely believe it. Non-existent performance. Burnley fans were there until the end, and we get nothing back from ownership. And it's same under Garlick, same to an extent under Barry Kilby as well. You know, chairman, you know, I think Barry was probably a little bit better. Teasdale was a little bit, you know, here and there every now and again. But I just think it's, you know, under Garlick, I'd have said exactly the same. I think there should be accountability for fans in the form of an open forum where fans, not just shareholders at the AGM, because we've barely got any shareholders now because Alan Pace and AOK, you know, offered to buy people's shares. Open forum for any fans to go to be filmed, recorded, you know, minutes cast, etc., etc.
No, 100%. We should organise it. We should host it. Yeah, have Alan Pace come on from the BO end as an open event.
We've tried.
We'd love to have him on. I mean, if we did have him on, we've not had any signs that he's anxiously waiting for the second or third invite. But if we did have him on, would he? What would you ask? What would we ask him though? What would we ask him now?
Bloody hell!
How?
I would want
if you were sat down with Alan Pace.
Yeah, try and do my own work first. I know. Thanks very much. But it would be, as Greavesy just said, it's about that level of transparency. I'd want to know what the plan is. I'd want to know what the longer term plan for Burnley is. I'd want to know how secure the club is realistically, not in terms of, you know, ALK speak, but realistically, and, you know, just lay that out. And then we'd have a level of understanding. It's not a lot we want to know out of them. It's just that level of transparency. And then we can either buy into it or not. It's not difficult.
I mean, we know what people are like around Burnley. If you aren't transparent and upfront and honest with them, then the rumours go wildfire, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the ones over the years that we've heard about, you know, and never mind the transfer deadline day of who's been spotted in Tesco or McDonald's in Clitheroe or all these kind of things. You know, there's always those kind of things going on. But big picture, you know, the stories over the years about how many training ground bust-ups where, you know, somebody's lamped so-and-so and that's why he's not, or somebody slept with somebody's wife and that's why they're not in the team, and all that kind of thing goes on. But if you have big questions, I mean, you know, a smart communication approach about Mike Trezor, for example, you might say, we don't want to put it out there what our deal was. Okay, fine. But you can end the speculation by leaking it in some way, that it's understood that he's got, you know, he's about to trigger an appearance thing or whatever it is. I mean, Chris, what would you ask him if you got the chance to, if Pace was here on Thursday's episode of From the BO, and what would your first question be?
It's one of those. We sort of we knew going down 2 years ago that there was this issue with was it like, you know, the loan having to be paid, you know, significant chunk of the loan being had to be into it, you know, again, where we stand from a financial perspective, etc., and what that gives Vincent or another, you know, in terms of a war chest moving forward. I mean, you know, you'd like to think if he gets a similar amount to spend again, and you know, spent half of what they generated in the window 2 years ago. If he gets that again, every likelihood, you think that, you know, Burnley will be in and around, you know, the promotion picture, etc. So yeah, I'd like a bit of clarity on that front. I think we'd all sort of like. I mean, it's not necessarily the gift to have to do that, Chairman, but just a nice little, Vincent's my man sort of thing. It's been a tricky old season, but something like that, just some sort of insight into where he sees things going on that front. Whether he's on borrowed time, whether he's he expects a significant improvement, etc. But yeah, it's all very quiet, isn't it?
Justin, what would be on top of your agenda sitting down with Alan Pace on Thursday's episode?
Can I have my money back, please? No, obviously, I think all the suggestions that people have made are clearly in the best interests of the fans. I just don't think they'd tell you anything. I just think they'd keep it all under their hat. I don't think they see, despite what they say, all the noises that they make. I think they see this very much as we own the club, we call the shots. The shutters go up when we let you in to watch the games, and then once the game's over, that's it. We're not. You see a lot of people, don't you know, saying it doesn't. I mean, I know I said it first on this podcast. It doesn't feel like Burnley anymore, but there's a lot of people saying, I want my club back, that sort of thing. It does feel very much like they see it as their plaything. So why, if you managed to get them on the spot, do you think they'd really tell you what was really going on behind the scenes, or would it all be a smoke and mirrors exercise? I'm not convinced that they have got transparency on the agenda, even if you did manage to nail them down. I mean, we see week in, week out at the press conference, Vincent Kompany has gone from being quite transparent, quite open about what was going on to, I mean, we don't even know when players are injured now, do we? Let alone, I mean, so most of them have had their operation by the time we find out anything about it. And it's usually when the player themselves has tweeted a picture of themselves in hospital recovering from whatever injury they've been operated on for. So, yeah, it would be nice if they would give us a bit of a clue about what was going on and what the plans were, what direction we're headed in. But I think we're on a hide into nothing there, to be honest.
I'd like to know who owns the club, really. Who actually does own the club? Because we know Pace is the chairman, but when it really comes to the big decisions, if there are these silent investors behind the scenes, I'd like to know who they are. I'd like to know who actually is in charge of the club, because it's serious stuff, isn't it? Because, and the loans definitely need addressing. We read Chester Perry on Up the Clarets, and people treat it like gospel, and he does an incredible amount of work to go through and try and work out what's going on. But it'd be nice to be able to say to Alan Pace, how accurate is what Chester Perry's saying there about that loan? Is that the situation? I understand there's business secrets and they don't need to go into stuff that they don't want to, but ultimately these loans are secured against Turf Moor and against the Gawthorpe training facility, and we know where it ends up if loans don't get paid. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that we're at that situation now, but that's how serious it is. If the loan's not, the ground is secured as the security against the loan. So I'd like to know who actually owns the football club. There was a question put to JJ Watt on Twitter. We'll finish off with this because we had a little chat about this and had a diversity of opinion on it. Bob Lord Clarets on Twitter wrote, has anyone seen Alan Pace and JJ Watt? They seem to have gone missing. And JJ Watt responded to this, despite the fact that he didn't appear to be tagged in it. So, very observant. And he said, literally everyone has seen us. Alan is at nearly every match, and I take my lumps publicly every week. You can be frustrated. Trust that we are as well. But let's not act like we're over here hiding from anything. Greavesy, what do you think of that?
I do agree with him. I have to say, I do think as we just discussed Alan Pace, and I think we've kind of worked out that when things are going well, Alan Pace will tweet and he'll post stuff and he'll be a bit more active and things like that. I mean, the argument is before every home game, to give him his due, he is walking around, he is in the fan zone, checking on them trestle tables for the international fans, waiting for you and Woody to turn up with your international membership to give you a Benny and an Athens pie, obviously, and things like that. He cleans the tables, as we saw in the mission to Burnley and things like that. I think I think JJ Watt's made a bit of a rod for his own back by being so visible to begin with.
Yeah.
And actually, and I think I made this point on last week's podcast, I think it was his wedding anniversary. He's got a young kid. I think he's been doing something with his brother. I find it really weird that people lump JJ Watt into this, because he's kind of stuck his neck out to be this kind of, we love the area. He's going to spend the whole of March, from what we understand, or a vast part of March, in the area. I mean, I just wonder what people want. I think we're getting a little bit desperate. Somebody else put out that Bob Lord Claret puts a missing cat poster out every time his cat goes out for a second meal and things like that. And I think it's all right to be frustrated, but come on, the guy is a minority investor who is, much to your annoyance, banging on about Benny and on American TV. I think it's a bit desperate and a bit kind of, I've not heard from Bobby Ball, I should say. Bobby Ball started following me on Twitter. I've not heard from Bobby Ball for a bit. The only one we hear from is Matt Williams. And it's, I don't know. I think it's just a bit of a cheap shot for me. Fair enough. Ask where the chairman is. The chairman is the guy who makes the decisions, we're told. A kind of celebrity investor who's gone above and beyond to try and push the Burnley brand. I think we're just getting a little bit twatty.
I'm trying to keep my own opinions a little bit out of this, but I'm gonna reply to that one, because if you're prepared to go on top of an open decker bus, going around Burnley, holding up the championship trophy after you've been involved in the club for a couple of months, right? And then you don't tweet anything for almost a fortnight about the club during their worst spell of form for years, people are going to say, where are you? They are going to say that. And I think it's perfectly fair. Now, I can see some logic in what you're saying, that I can almost see a strategy there for him, where he's thinking perhaps, you know what, I have overexposed myself here. I'm seen as the public face of these anonymous investors and so on. We don't have anyone to attach myself. Have I made a rod for my own back, as you say? Has he made himself such a publicly identified part of the ownership group, when he's probably not a big part of the ownership group at all? We don't know. Again, we don't know. No transparency at all. We don't know whether he owns half a share or he owns 20 shares, 20% of the shares. We don't know that. But he has put himself as the public face, in a way, this friendly, beer-pulling version of ALK that's out there. And he's probably thought, time to take a step back here a bit. This could get nasty. This club's going to go through a really difficult few months. It's probably wise just to step back a little bit. But I don't have any problem with fans raising that question about where are you. He's announced himself as a co-owner, as a part of the club, and he's the one who's out on Twitter and talking a lot. Then people are going to go towards him, aren't they? What do you think, Justin? Am I being unfair there? Or?
No, well, I mean, I think. He's not really in my sight line anyway, so I don't really miss him when he goes quiet. But I like to think of it on the other side of the coin. What exactly would we want him to be saying? I mean, I wouldn't like him in my face every week, giving it the old "we go again." Come on, we're not being we're not being diverted from our course. We're going to stay with and all that. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't. For me, they're all better off keeping their mouth shut until the results improve a little bit, because I don't really want to hear from them. I want to see the team performing on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? I think it's football fans only tend to get involved in this kind of thing when things are going badly, don't they? They don't complain when people are up front and centre when things are going well. And we just looking for somebody to blame, and for somebody to take the blame, and for somebody to tell us what they're going to do to put it right. I mean, poor old Vincent Kompany has to stand up every week in his press conference, and we've picked apart everything that he said in those press conferences. I suspect we probably would do the same, whatever Alan Pace and JJ Watt came out with. it doesn't bother me in the slightest that they don't come out. I'm not. Do they ever say anything worth listening to, really, or is it's always just more of the same, isn't it? Depending on the circumstances. I think more about the football than I think about anything else.
Woody, what do you make of JJ Watt?
It all ties into what we've just been saying about a lack of transparency, doesn't it? We're not quite sure of what his role is. Is it just a cheerleader for folks in the US to be able to identify with brand at Burnley across the States, which it primarily probably is, and that would then deter from the fact that he should be parroting Burnley propaganda week in, week out. But it's like, who is responsible for putting this shit out? Is there anybody? We don't know who they are. So we tend to impose that on JJ Watt because he stuck his neck out from above the, parapet, etc. And ALK won't. So for me, it all comes down to that transparency thing and not understanding roles, projects, etc. And we are going to impose what we think these roles are and fill that void and fill that gap. It's what anybody does in this instance. Unfortunately, when it kind of happens in a football scenario, it all goes to shit fairly quickly when everything's gone slightly awry, doesn't it?
Yeah, Chris, final word on this one?
Yeah, I think it's one of those. I mean, I was watching the Super Bowl 2 weeks ago and he's riding down the strip in Vegas, being interviewed by Neil Reynolds from Sky NFL, and talking about Burnley Football Club on. I don't know how many viewers Sky get for their Super Bowl coverage, but again, you can't buy that sort of profile, and it seems a thoroughly genuine article to me. First game of the season, I was walking down, down Yorkshire Street, and he's outside the 110 Club, and he's mobbed with people wanting pictures, and you can certainly imagine. I want to get to me, exec suite, and I want to chill out and watch Burnley against Manchester City. But he was more than happy to hold court with the Burnley fans, and he seems genuine in that respect. And that response on Twitter has probably stung a little. He's sort of like he's gone out on a limb to really try and promote Burnley as a brand in his home country, and I've no truck with him really. He's like I say, a bit of transparency would be welcome all around, but I imagine he's hurting like the rest of us, even though he's only been affiliated with the club for like 12 months or so.
Yeah, he does seem a genuine nice bloke and everything. I just don't think there's a problem with fans raising questions to him like that, because he's put himself up there. He's coming over apparently for, as you said, for a month, so I'm sure he'll get access to opinions from Burnley fans while he's over here. So it'll be interesting to see how it all goes. Thanks very much for joining us. We have got Burnley are at home to Bournemouth on Sunday, March the 3rd. And so that means we'll have to fiddle things around a little bit on Sunday night to get our debrief for that out on a Monday for you. But we will be back before then on Friday with our regular episode. Thanks very much for listening. Do give us a rating and let people know about us. Thanks very much again for all your feedback, and up the Clarets.
Jimmy McElroy to Watson.